Good morning.
We are surrounded by Jesus. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. And so we're going to have our devotional, then we're going to worship and pray. And you know what I need in my life? I need real life examples. It's one thing for me to read principles in the Bible, or you should do this, don't do this, or this is what the way to live. But I like to see an example. How about you? You like to see an example?
Yes.
And I think that's the best way to learn. That's the way children learn. They see the example of their parents, and then they follow that. So we know that if a parent tells the child, you have to follow Jesus, but they don't follow Jesus, it's a bad example, and the child doesn't follow Jesus. So example, in my opinion, is stronger than just words on a page. You can get a lot of head knowledge, but to put it into life, I need to see someone who lived it and walked it out. And you know what the good thing about the Bible is? It's full of examples. One of our greatest examples is the Apostle Paul. So we're going to look at some examples from his life from the book of Acts 24. And Paul is on trial. He's been arrested. This is towards the end of his ministry. He's been arrested. He's in custody right now. And Acts 24, verse 5 through 9, this is the accusation the Jews make against Paul when he's before Felix, the governor Felix. All right? So he's on trial before Felix, and the Jews are accusing him. So keep that in mind. This is what they say. We have found this man to be a troublemaker, stirring up riots among the Jews all over the world. He is a ringleader of the Nazarene sect and even tried to desecrate the temple. So we seized him. By examining him yourself, you will be able to learn the truth about all these charges we are bringing against him. So it's a kind of an amazing turn of events, so to speak. Paul, who is a Jew and was a leader of the Jews, a leader of those persecuting Christians, a leader of those who was arresting Christians, a leader of those who was bringing Christians before trial, a leader of those who was stoning Christians to death, he now is on trial for being a Christian. You get the picture? He was doing all that, and now suddenly he's on the other side, so to speak. And he's being persecuted. He's being arrested. He's being threatened with being stoned and being killed. Amazing, right? So the first lesson I learned from that is that it's never too late to change your life.
Amen.
Never too late. Paul was believing one thing. He was persecuting the church. God appeared to him. Jesus appeared to him on the road to Damascus, and he turned his life around. An extreme example to show us that it's never too late to change your life. Never. Never too late to change your life. And no matter how bad you are, no matter how wrong you are, Jesus can turn your life around and set you on the right course. Amen?
Amen.
That's what we learned from the Apostle Paul. He was persecuting people. He was accusing people. And now he's being accused of the same thing he was persecuting people for. Total life change. And I believe God used Paul as an extreme example. Because I'm sure people said at that time, that guy will never become a Christian. Never. Not him. Maybe that guy, but this guy, there's no hope for that guy. So I believe God used an extreme example to show us that nobody is too far from God. Nobody is too far that they can't turn around. No one is too deep in sin. No one is too deep in error that they can't be saved. Sometimes I look at some of my family members, particularly my family of origin, and I say, I don't see it. I can't see them turning to God. Some of you have the same experience, right? You think of my brother, my sister, I don't see it. I can't see it. They're totally uninterested. Atheists, into other things. I don't see it. But Paul's example teaches us that anyone can turn to God. And God can do miracles in anyone's life. He can appear to anyone and turn their life totally, totally around. So that's the first lesson we learned from Paul. The second lesson is he's on trial now for spreading the gospel. That's the charge against him. I wonder if there will be enough evidence against me or against you to put you or me on trial for spreading the gospel. Would they find enough evidence against us? Or would they find no evidence? Paul had plenty of evidence because he knew that the purpose of a Christian's life is to share the gospel with others. And if we are followers of Jesus, our goal, our purpose in life is to share the gospel with others. So that if we do get accused and arrested of sharing the gospel with other people, there'll be a lot of evidence against us. That's good evidence against us. That yes, that person shared the gospel. We will not be, no, there's no evidence that they ever shared the gospel, so we have to let them go. So Paul knew his purpose and was willing to build his life on that purpose, reaching other people for Jesus. That's the second lesson. The third lesson I learned is that there will be opposition. There will be opposition.
All the time.
All the time there will be opposition. If we expect there not to be opposition, we're probably not doing the right thing.
Right.
If we're trying to fit in with everybody, change the gospel so society likes it, which is happening now with sexuality and marriage and all different kinds of areas. We'll just change it. Let's accept that so there's no controversies. No, that's not the way the gospel is. The gospel is controversial. It's God's way. God created man and woman to be married together, to have children, and the parents raise the children, period. Not the government raises the children. That's the way God created things. And it's black and it's white. That's it. But if we try to change just a little bit, let me go along with this, because we don't want to alienate people. We want to have people, we want to be a welcoming church. Just welcome anybody who comes. Yes, we would welcome anybody who comes, but we tell everybody the truth, because the truth is the truth. We love everybody, but the truth is the truth. So we learn that Paul faced opposition. And we will face opposition if we stick to the gospel as Jesus gave it to us in the Bible. If we change it, we won't face opposition. But we won't be following Jesus. So we expect opposition. We're not surprised by it. And the fourth and final thing I'll talk about today is Paul's response to the opposition. How do we respond to opposition? And down in verse 14, he's given a chance to speak. And he doesn't try to excuse himself. He doesn't try to defend himself. He lays it right on the line. He's not afraid. He's not trying to wiggle his way out of it. And down in verse 14 says, however, I admit that I worship the God of our ancestors as a follower of the way, which is Christianity, which they call a sect. And then down in verse 15 he says, and I have the same hope in God as these men themselves have. There will be a resurrection of both the righteous and the wicked. So I strive always to keep my conscience clear before God and man. So Paul didn't change to protect himself from opposition. He spoke the truth and let the consequences be what they may. Why? Because his sole purpose in life, he says right down here, verse 16, I strive always to keep my conscience clear before God and before man. He wanted to have a clear conscience before God. He was doing what God approved of.
Amen.
If he was doing that, that's the only judge he wanted to satisfy. Not the Felix, not the Jewish judges, not the Roman judges. I'm going to satisfy God. He is my judge. Exactly. I want to have a clear conscience before God. And you know what? If you have a clear conscience before God, you don't need anything else. Right. People, yes, will oppose you. People will say things about you. But if your conscience is clear before God, that's the best place to be. And he says he wants his conscience to be clear before men. What that means is he told them the truth. My responsibility is to tell people in my life the truth in a loving way. Not to sugarcoat it or not to tell them the truth because they'll be offended. We have to tell them the truth. So those are just 4 quick lessons from the Apostle Paul. And he's an example that we all can learn from, an example that we can all follow in how a life can be changed, turned totally around, how our purpose is to share the gospel, that knowing that there'll be opposition and standing in the face of opposition. And that requires prayer and fellowship together. So we're gathered here in Crossroads Church as we are every Wednesday morning. And we're going to fight our battles in prayer this morning. If you have a prayer request, just hit the link below and we'll be happy to pray for you. God bless you.